Mayor Copeland, we're ready.
The City Commission meeting is called to order. The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Here.
Dr. Estra,
Here.
Mr. O'Neill,
Here.
Mr. Rue,
Here.
Mr. Copeland.
Here, please, those of you who are in position to do it, rise for the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Our God, we're grateful for the opportunity to make decisions for the people of Springfield. Please help us to make good decisions and represent them well. And our heart is with all of those who are involved in trying to deal with the virus among us. May we get past it in the coming months. Your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved, Estra.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. I believe Dave has a proclamation.
I never received it, but I know Marty's here.
I'm sorry.
But perhaps our guest, Mr. Fagans, who I think, Marty, don't you have the resolution?
Yes, I do.
I hate, this is embarrassing, but would you mind reading it for all of us, please?
I certainly will. I can't seem to show it though in the Zoom meeting.
Well, if you were
The
in
city-
Hawaii, it'd be all right.
The City of Springfield, Ohio proclamation. Whereas developmental disabilities manifest during the developmental years of life before age 22 and are lifelong in duration, resulting in the continuing need for services to support full inclusion in community life. And whereas 1 in 6 or about 17% of the children aged 3 through 17 have one or more developmental disabilities, and the number is growing. And whereas Developmental Disabilities of Clark County works with hundreds of partner agencies, organizations, and individuals throughout the region to provide services to Clark County residents with developmental disabilities. And whereas it is estimated that more than 800 residents of Clark County work as direct support professionals for individuals with developmental disabilities who are living at home, in group homes, or independently, and for individuals employed and in day programs. And now therefore, I, Warren Copeland, Mayor of the City of Springfield, Ohio, and President of the City Commission, do hereby proclaim March 2021 as Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month in Springfield, and urge our citizens to foster opportunities for people with developmental disabilities in the community and to help them function as independently and productively as possible.
Great.
Signed
Thank
by Mayor Copeland.
Go ahead, Dave. You want to say something? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say to Marty, thank you and the staff and the many volunteers who are engaged in assisting and working with people with developmental disabilities. You do a great job, and as a result, the lives of those folks are greatly enhanced. And I just can't say thanks enough, Marty, and congratulations.
Thank you,
And I
Dr.
just wanted to
Estrop, and
say-
thank you to the rest of the commission for recognizing the folks here in Clark County. We serve over 1,100 people and their families to make their life as full as possible.
As a grandfather of someone who certainly is going to qualify when he graduates from high school in a year or so, I also want to join in recognizing what you do and appreciating its importance to our citizens. Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Mr. Fagan, can you talk about exactly where developmental disability is located and how family members who may have people that they want to come to or be a part of that program?
Certainly, thank you for asking. We're located on Kenton Street, down in Kenton and Burnett. And if people want more information, they can go to our website, which is www.clarkdd.org. And if anyone that might be listening has the need for someone to seek services, they can call our intake specialist at 937-346-0754. And they'll be helped with any kind of issues concerning eligibility and receiving services.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, shall we proceed with the ordinances, first readings?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cropland lease agreement 2021-2025 with Clem Farms Limited to lease 37.99 acres at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, of which 34.89 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided by Clem Farms Limited from December 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cropland lease agreement 2021-2025 with Jeremy and Taylor Renner Farm to lease approximately 579.04 acres at and near the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport in Clark County, Ohio, of which 530.5 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided by Jeremy and Taylor Renner Farm from December 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cropland lease agreement 2021-2025 with Burner Farms to lease 308.758 acres in the vicinity of the city's water treatment plant, of which 235.754 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided from January 1, 2021 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a cropland lease agreement 2021-2025 with Clark's Farm Market LLC to lease 103.889 acres in the vicinity of the city's water treatment plant, of which 99.159 acres are tillable farmland, and confirming and approving services provided from January 1, 2021 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into an airport vegetation management agreement 2021-2025 with Jeffrey A. Goodbar to manage vegetation growth on 33.14 acres at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport, and confirming and approving services provided by Jeffrey A. Goodbar from December 1st, 2020 to the passage of this ordinance. Authorizing the city manager to enter into a development incentive agreement, single-family residential development, with Rock Powers as power of attorney for Janice L. Powers to provide for sewer services to real property outside the city limits. Authorizing the purchase of one TerraTrack tractor and one Mount mulching mower for an amount not to exceed $240,603 from Steinke Tractor Sales Incorporated through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code.
Are there any questions or comments on first readings?
Yes, I'd just like to comment on the ordinances dealing with the mowing at the airport. Those are win-win from my perspective, because what they allow us to do is earn some income off that property, while and the farmers to earn some income, while in fact keeping our costs for maintaining the property, particularly mowing, allowing us to keep those costs down. So I think this is a great win-win. I know we've done it for some time, and I'm glad to see it continuing.
Anyone else? Clerk, proceed with second readings.
Amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by rezoning 0.17 acre at 366 Ludlow Avenue, Springfield, Ohio, from RS8 Medium Density Single Family Residence District to CN2 Neighborhood Commercial District.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do we have someone who wants to speak to this?
Perhaps, yes.
Jill?
We're checking to see if this person does wish to speak. If you are on the line to speak on this item, would you unmute your microphone, please? Well, maybe not. If somebody does join and ask, we'll make sure they get to speak. Doesn't look like they're going to do that right now.
Okay. Is there a motion?
We have a motion and a second. I don't.
Okay.
If there's any comment.
Any discussion from commissioners? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
amending the zoning map of Springfield, Ohio by amending the Limestone Center Planned Development District located at 1600 North Limestone Street.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estra.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from the commission? From the audience? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the exercise of the city's option to renew the parking management agreement with Republic Parking System LLC for downtown park management services for an amount not to exceed $220,000.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estra.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments from commissioners? Mr. Rue?
Yeah, Brian, I was just hoping you would explain again this, what this obligation is, how much we're using of it, since we're not charging for parking and things like that, that we're maybe not using this full agreement as we originally planned 2 years ago. What you can explain again to the citizens and us, what we're using with this contract right now.
Yes, definitely, Commissioner. So the 220 represents two different pieces. One is the operation side, and secondly is a capital purchase side. Right now, we would intend to only utilize the operation side of that, which is about $85,000 for the contract with Republic/Reef Parking, who will do the overall maintenance and operation of the garage itself. The remaining amount that makes it or takes it to the 220,000 would be for capital purchases if we would so decide to move forward with parking meters and parking control devices in a couple of the parking lots that would be managed and controlled by the city. Those are things that I would hope later in 2021, we would be able to come and discuss with commissioners before we would actually move forward with those purchases, and really evaluating where we're at. The economy is not completely healed, obviously, from the pandemic and so forth, and certainly in our downtown. Workers still remain remote for several of our main office tenants in the downtown. So it's going to be something that we continue to evaluate whether we would move forward with the on-street and the parking lot paid system, which then would also generate whether the parking garage, what we do with that. So right now, again, the operation component of that 220 is around $85,000, and that's what we would intend to appropriate and move forward with at this point.
The monies that aren't used obviously are in this bank that we can choose to use down the road, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Was there money left over from the first, what we had the 3 year before?
Well, remember what we ended up doing was a 1 year with 6 renewal options.
Correct.
And so we are,
220.
say that one more time.
That also another 220 that we only used X amount of dollars out of?
I don't remember the exact amount that we had, but certainly there was monies on maintenance and stuff that would have been set aside that would not have been utilized. So yeah, and even in this 85,000, there's monies that potentially may not be utilized based off of, if it doesn't snow,
Right.
in this current agreement or this next contract year, things like that are maintenance type items. So we were able to cut and reduce the overall amount of contract with Reef or Republic Parking Management because the garage is free parking right now. And so we were able to reduce those costs with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrad,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to accept and continue an Energized Community grant agreement through the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, NOPEC, in an amount up to $64,018 to be used for implementation of energy savings or energy infrastructure measures. Authorizing the city manager to renew and continue an existing grant agreement, and authorizing the city manager, law director, and director of finance to do all things necessary in accordance with the grant agreement and to comply with all relevant local, state, and federal legal requirements.
Move to adopt.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments?
I was hoping Brian or other staff might tell us exactly the kinds of things that we'll be doing with this money.
Yes, Commissioner. So actually I will have Logan Cobbs, if she would like to answer that. She can talk about what we've used monies like this before in the last couple grant cycles. And then right now, nothing is immediately planned, but Logan has been working with Jeff Thomas and our facilities on what those projects might be for this current cycle. With that, Logan.
Thanks, Brian. Good afternoon, Commissioner. So yes, Brian is correct in that we have not decided exactly what these funds will be used for in 2021, but in 2019, those funds were used to replace the Fire Station 1 roof. Last year's funds were used to do lighting upgrades, both at the service center and at the airport, and then also to replace the flight school roof at the airport. So those are some of the types of projects that we've used funds for in the past, but conversations are still ongoing on what those will be used for this year.
Logan, do you have, being that the contract is being renewed today to take effect in 14 days, there's an opt-out period of time that people can opt out without any charge. How long is that period of time?
Are you talking about those that are utilized, like our residents that are utilizing NOPEC?
Yes.
I'm not sure, Commissioner, what that opt-out period is. Maybe Mark could speak more to that.
Because it's usually a period of time that they can opt out without paying the $25 get out fee.
Commissioner, that is correct. I have to look at the exact dates of that, and I will email commission as to exact dates and period of time that you have to opt out. What this is in particular is a NOPEC grant that we're receiving.
Right.
This is not really the opt-out period for electric aggregation.
Oh, so that doesn't take effect right now then?
That's correct.
It wouldn't be simultaneously with renewing our contract with NOPEC?
Well, this is actually the authorizing acceptance of a grant that we received from NOPEC. NOPEC actually provides money back to communities that are their member communities to do projects, energy projects in their community. And that's what this is about. The actual aggregation itself is an evergreen contract, but annually people are allowed to opt out of the program if they choose, and they can go procure their electricity on their own if they wish. I don't have those dates off the top of my head, but I will get them and mail them out to commission.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? We'll call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the purchase of 8 2021 Ford Police Interceptors from National Auto Fleet Group for an amount not to exceed $306,463.68 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code.
so
Move
moved.
to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes, for Mr. Heck or other staff, actually on the agenda, there's the purchase of a number of different vehicles, starting with the purchase of these police interceptors. I'm wondering if you can give us and the community some sense of what we're replacing, Brian, or other staff, and why we're replacing it. Obviously, we wouldn't be in a position to do this had the community not supported our last levy. So I just want to make sure the community knows they're getting their money's worth out of the vehicles we use.
Yes, certainly, Commissioner. So I'll speak specifically to this item on the police interceptors, which are rotation for our fleet in our police division. And obviously we utilize those vehicles. We're pretty hard on them in the sense that they are constantly utilized 24/7, which vehicles honestly probably in the grand scheme of things aren't meant to operate that way. But these, we've had a lot of luck with these Ford police interceptors in rotating them into our fleet. And so part of our commitment from the levy was to invest in our public safety, and that's in our equipment and infrastructure and so forth. And so we were able to, with the passage of the levy, ramp up the number of cruisers that we were able to purchase. And why that's also important for the organization as a whole is these vehicles then filter down throughout the organization. So once they've met their useful life as a cruiser and they're rotated out, they get passed down throughout the organization to different departments and divisions, and we continue to utilize them until we get really the max life out of them. And so we're able to recycle, in a sense, the vehicles throughout our organization. So other departments and divisions aren't necessarily buying brand new vehicles. They're able to make use of existing vehicles that have been purchased. So we get the full life out of those vehicles. So that's very important. But again, I think is important that we've been able in the last couple of years to ramp up the number of police cruisers that we've been able to put into our fleet because they live almost all the time in their vehicles, and they're very important to the work that they do. And obviously we know there's more and more equipment that gets placed in these vehicles so that they can do their job safely, efficiently, and effectively. And then again, we're able to pass them down throughout the organization. There's also some vehicles that come on more on our sewer maintenance and our wastewater treatment side. I'm going to ask Chris Moore to talk about that. He can talk about the age of the vehicles that are being replaced. and go from there. So I will ask Chris to do that now.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. So down the list a little bit, there is a hydro excavator that is replacing a 2009 model. So it's hit our 10-year-old mark and is ready to go off to probably the junkyard in this case. They don't last very long. We have a jetter truck, which is a 2014. We have a 7-year cycle on those, and that isn't as much a result of what happens to the truck. It's the equipment that's on the back. In the past, we've been able to keep a cabin chassis and put something new on the back, but that wasn't the case in this one. And then we have a crane truck at our wastewater treatment plant that is a 2010 model. So it's actually a year past when we planned on keeping it, and it'll be replaced in this cycle.
Thank you all very much. I saw some buses on there in the next one. I don't know if, Mark, you want to comment on those now or?
Sure. We are buying 5 medium-duty buses, I believe, with those. They will be replacements for aging vehicles in our SCAT fleet.
And that comes with some federal support, doesn't it?
Between ODOT and the feds, those are 100% paid for.
Great. Thank you.
So the next time you're at City Hall, you can notice the vehicles that are parked downstairs. Many of those are former police cars that have been being used by inspections and all kinds of other folks who don't have to drive them quite as hard.
Yep, we still have some of the old Crown Vics and everything, so we max the life out of vehicles.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the issuance of a purchase order for the purchase of 5 low-floor cutaway buses from Transportation Equipment Sales Corporation for an amount not to exceed $1,355,195.
so moved. Estrop.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
and directing the city manager to select certain identified parcels of real estate that constitute non-productive lands and to notify the prosecuting attorney or the county auditor of Clark County, Ohio, as the case may be, pursuant to sections 5722.03 and 5722.04 of the Ohio Revised Code, that the city wishes to acquire said parcels pursuant to the provisions of Ohio Revised Code Chapter 5722 and ordinance number 98-293 passed August 25th, 1998, and to do all things necessary to acquire said parcels.
Move to adopt.
second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes, I would like for Shannon to talk about the Mow to Own program. I think this is really a great program and how other citizens might wish to take advantage of this program.
Sure, Commissioner. And I give most of, if not all of the credit to Steve Thompson, who actually administers with his code enforcement team, the Mow to Own program. But Mow to Own is a program that we created a number of years ago in an effort to address the rising cost of maintaining vacant property and vacant lots throughout town. What it allows is for an owner either adjacent to or within 1,000 feet of a vacant and abandoned lot to take on ownership of that lot through sweat equity, meaning over a course of a 7-month period, the individual who's elected to participate in Mow to Own will mow the property, clear the property property of any junk, trash, debris. If there are sidewalks, keep them shoveled, all of the things that a property owner would do. And what we do is we apply the cost that the city would otherwise incur in taking care of what would have been the previous owner's responsibility, and apply that to the sweat equity of the applicant. At the end of approximately 7 months, they've invested the amount of dollars that are fair market for the acquisition of a lot, and it becomes theirs through quitclaim deed. This is a way for individuals to expand their own property and create, off-street parking options through the zoning code, etc. But it's also a way for nonprofits and other individuals to invest and enhance within their neighborhoods. And Steve has the actual data. I see that Brian has brought him up. He can share it, but for the most part, some of you remember about 5-6 years ago, I said, heck, if we can get 100 lots through, this will all be worth it. And we've well exceeded that and look forward to continuing this into the future. Steve, if you can give a numbers update.
Sure. So with this list, this will bring the program to 150 properties we've been able to transfer.
Wow.
So
Great.
that's a lot of properties we've taken off our liability list.
If I might ask, if there's a piece of vacant property near my house, and I think 1,000 feet is roughly 2 blocks, is that right? Roughly 2 blocks?
Roughly 2.5 blocks. Yes, sir.
2.5 blocks. So if there's a vacant parcel within 2.5 blocks of my house that I might want to look at this MODA own program, what do I do? Who do I contact? How do I see if somebody owns it? Just what do I need to do if I'm interested in pursuing that?
Sure. I would say have whomever give us a call at 937-324-7380. And we can take a look at the property, see who owns it, see if it's in the tax foreclosure process or not. And we'll help them either with the MODA own program, or if there's a way the Clark County Land Bank can also assist in perhaps getting the property, we'll try to figure out the best way to get it into their hands.
Great. That's super. So could you repeat that number again? If
Sure.
people are interested.
937-324-7380.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Van Shannon, I appreciate it, and it's a great program.
Hey, Dave, if it's in your neighborhood, it's not going to last long, so you better hustle.
I've already been mowing Dave's side yard. It's going to be mine next week.
Yeah, I'm mowing it right now. As soon as that snow melted, I was out there with my lawnmower.
I drive by one of these lots most days, and I really appreciate how they keep it. They even got it decorated, et cetera. So it's really an addition to the community. It's a great program. Anybody
Thank you,
else?
Shannon.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Gary Gilbert Jr. doing business as Gilbert's Lawn Service for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
so moved, Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Bright Sites Incorporated for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes,
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Miller's Property Service LLC for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
so moved, Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Stinnett Industries LLC, doing business as Pet to Perfection Lawn and Snow Removal Services for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question. I think I asked this the last meeting, but I would like for Brian to explain again the amount. 50,000 is not for each contract, correct?
Yes, so typically our program averages around 50,000. And so this allows us to use multiple vendors. So no more than 50. And if we came back and had additional grass mowing services that we needed, we would ask for that bump as well. But this gives us the flexibility to assign lots to multiple vendors so that we can make sure we're staying up on it. And so we try to spread the work out so not one contractor gets overwhelmed and can't keep up with the work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with ET's Lawn Maintenance and Landscaping LLC for weed cutting and lot clearing services as needed by the city for an amount not to exceed $50,000.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with A&B Asphalt Corporation for an amount not to exceed $330,750.
So
Move
moved.
to adopt.
Estrop. Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
I was wondering if somebody might tell us what this is going to be used for, this and the next.
Yes, commissioners, let me unmute Chris Moore.
So the street materials that are on this item are for our street maintenance division. They use it for the patching they do around town in front of the sidewalk curb and gutter program, when the water and sewer groups dig holes, and just to do general street type repairs. The next one, which has there are three of them actually. One has sand and gravel.
Mhm.
And the sand and gravel is, for the most part, is what's used under the asphalt. And then it's also the sand and gravel that is used to put around new pipes when they're installed to make sure they're properly supported.
Chris, if people have potholes or problems on their streets, they want repaired, what do they do? Can they call you guys, go online? What's the protocol?
They can do either. On our homepage at springfieldohio.gov, there's a button that says report a concern. And that is really probably the quickest and easiest way to get a pothole or other concerns reported. The other way is to call the service center. The number here is 525-5800.
Yeah, I'm just gonna, you guys are super responsive and you just respond very, very quickly and very well to a lot of different citizens' concerns, from potholes to tree concerns and things like that. I just appreciate how you're doing that, Chris, and how quick you are responding to those things.
Thank
Means
you.
a lot.
And it's always good to remind folks that just because we can't be aware of every hole. So we welcome people to report those, because as much as we would like to, we can't make it up and down every street every day. So do not hesitate to report. Don't assume that we're aware of it.
It just simple little actions make the city know that that the leadership cares about the city, and the staff's working hard to make sure the city's cared for. It just goes a long way. Those little pothole fills up. It just goes a long way.
And I would say, Chris, my congratulations to you and your staff. I couldn't agree with Commissioner Rue more. You guys do a fantastic, guys and gals do a fantastic job of attending to those issues that the public may have. So keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Anybody else? My wife asked me to thank you for the work you did on Center Street, which was more or less an entire covering, but it's in good shape. Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of street materials with Shelley Materials Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $327,775.
So
Move to
moved.
adopt.
Second.
Any comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter a contract to for the purchase of street materials with Highway LLC for an amount not to exceed $67,060.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of sand and gravel with Enon Sand and Gravel LLC for an amount not to exceed $26,398.75.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for the purchase of sand and gravel with Mechanicsburg Sand and Gravel Incorporated for an amount not to exceed $143,572.50.
So moved.
to adopt.
Second.
Second.
Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or
We moved
comments?
we moved that one every which way possible.
Right.
You got anybody, Jill, or did you get everybody?
I'll pick somebody. How about that?
Yeah. I figured Jill would figure it out. Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Providing for the supplemental appropriations within various funds and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Astra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the acceptance of a donation from the Defense Logistics Agency of 2 used Recon Scout XL robots valued at $1,500 each and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Do you have a
Call the roll.
throwbot? What's a throwbot do?
Yeah, so actually I'm calling up Chief Graff now, and I think he has one of them that he can show what they look like.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yeah, it's this little guy here. What the robots are, they're miniature robots. What they're used for is surveillance. There's like a little camera right there. And these are very heavy duty. You can pitch these into just about anything. They can throw them into a location and the wheels kind of move along. And then it watches through the camera. There's more to this. We have the remote where you have the video, where you can actually see the video. But the real value of these is what they allow us to do is, first of all, look in areas that maybe we can't necessarily see in easily, like in an attic or under a crawl space in a house. So they can be used if we're, worried about maybe possibly being in a situation where officers could be in danger, but they could also be used for like looking for like a missing child or somebody that's, we're trying to find out where something's at. And it's just another way that these machines protect us and add services to our community. These are valued at $1,500. That's the value the Defense Logistics Agency put on them. But as you can see, this is one of them, and it's virtually brand new. Other than us replenishing the batteries in them, these are about $15,000 a piece. So these programs bring this flexibility to us and to our citizens. We've got 3 of these now. So when the batteries run out, we have a replacement. So it's a very good program for us, adds to our safety and citizen safety, and a very good program for the city.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Appreciate it.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Confirming and approving the acceptance of a donation from the Springfield Township Fire Department of 37 twin-size mattresses valued at $200 each for a total value of $7,400 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes. I would like for our city manager or a fire chief or someone to talk about accepting twin mattress donations, because as we know, most people do not accept mattresses. So could you talk about that for a little bit?
Yes,
Glad
I
you
will ask Chief Miller. I don't know if he has, Chief Graff had a nice little visual. I don't know if he has a mattress he can show, but.
I don't have a mattress in my office. However, what I can do is tell you that we're a 24/7 operation. We have to place all sorts of furniture in stations. Springfield Township was successful on a grant. They had more mattresses than they needed. They knew that we were a 24/7 operation, and we've been working on partnerships. This is just one more piece of that. They were kind enough to share their grant with us, and we're asking you guys to hopefully help us gratefully accept.
So these are new mattresses. These are not old loaners.
Correct. This is
They're valued at 200. That's new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're not supposed to.
The biggest problem is getting rid of the old ones, and we've
Yeah.
already really managed a plan for that. So we're in good shape if we can get this done. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it speaks volumes to what Brian said about partnerships. That's what's really important here is Brian's and his team has been able to forge a lot of relationships and partnerships with outside departments and agencies that benefit us in this way. So thanks to Brian and his staff for that.
Absolutely. And thanks to Springfield Township. Well done, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a lease purchase agreement with Truist Bank in the principal amount of $780,000 to finance the purchase of one 800 jetter truck and one 2020 HX12 hydro excavator for sewer maintenance, and one 2022 HV607 SBA crane truck for use by the wastewater treatment plant. Authorizing the city manager, finance director, city treasurer, and law director to do all things they deem necessary to enter into and complete the subject lease transaction and declaring an emergency therein.
Move
So
to
moved.
adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the purchase of one 2020 HX hydro excavator from Brown Equipment Company for an amount not to exceed $401,995 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
So
To
moved,
adopt.
Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes.
Authorizing the purchase of one 800 jetter truck from Brown Equipment Company for an amount not to exceed $231,271.58 through Sourcewell pursuant to the Sourcewell Contract Purchasing Cooperative Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 9.48 of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yes. Can you talk about, city manager, the relationship between 06621 and 065-21?
Yeah, and Mark, if Mark wants to talk to that on 06621, 06721 and 06821 and 06521. The 06521 pulls together all of the leasing with the bank for the lease purchase agreement. And then the three are the actual purchase of the vehicles on the state cooperative or the Sourcewell cooperative purchasing program. So again, the one sets up the financing for all three, and then these next three items interrelate in the sense that they are the vehicles that are being financed, but we have to actually authorize the purchase through the certain cooperative programs. Mark?
Yeah, I'll just add on to Brian's comments that this is a 5-year lease that we'll be entering into. It's Truist Bank is now is what used to be known as the old Branch Bank and Trust, and they merged with SunTrust and are now Truist. We've done quite a bit of business with them in the past, but usually under the BB&T name that you might recognize from previous transactions. The interest rate here is very favorable in my estimation. It's 0.99%. So money's cheap at this point, which is nice for us when we're buying these kind of expensive vehicles. So that's what we're doing here. And again, I think it's a great way to finance these things.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the purchase of one 2022 HV 607 SBA crane truck for an amount not to exceed $68,137.20 from Rush Truck Centers through the Ohio Department of Transportation Cooperative Purchasing Program in accordance with the provisions of Section 5513.01B of the Ohio Revised Code and declaring it an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Hey, my dad's name was Rush. I didn't know he started a company. But anyway, clerk will call the roll.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into an engineering services agreement with Black and Veatch Corporation for the Eastern Pressure District Waterline Upgrades Project for an amount not to exceed $489,754 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrada,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with LJ DeWeese Company Incorporated for the CLA Sidewalk Project, PID number 109478, for an amount not to exceed $225,347.70 and declaring an emergency therein.
Move to adopt.
Second, Estrop.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Clerk
Yes.
will call the roll.
Oh, hold up for a second. Could somebody talk about which sidewalks we're talking about for this project?
Yeah, I'll actually ask Chris Moore to speak on that, but it's two main missing sections within the community.
Thank you.
Yeah, so commissioners, one section of this is on North Limestone between Julia Turner Way and Red Coach Drive along the east side of North Limestone. There's no sidewalk. And the other section is on Home Road over around Belmont Avenue and Ronez over towards Miracle Mile. There's a area through there where there is no sidewalk.
So this is going up toward is it the Family Dollar or the Dollar General store?
Yes, this kind of completes walk from the Ronez area at Belmont towards Family Dollar. That is down towards Durr Road.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrada,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland,
Yes.
authorizing city manager to enter into an amendment with Tyler Technologies Incorporated, formerly known as New World Systems Corporation, for an amount not to exceed $75,979.47 for the period of April 1, 2021 through September 30th, 2021 to maintain computer software used by the city's public service departments and declaring an emergency therein.
So
Move to
moved.
adopt.
Estrop.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
Yeah, Jill said service. Is it service or safety?
Oh, I'm sorry, public safety departments.
Okay, all right.
About that?
Thank you.
Anybody else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estrada,
Yes.
Mr. Cope,
Yes.
authorizing the city manager to enter into a host site agreement with Beta Technologies Incorporated for the installation of an eVTOL vertipad and flight simulator as part of the Advanced Air Mobility Campus at the Springfield Beckley Municipal Airport and declaring an emergency therein.
So moved, Estrop.
Second.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
This is really exciting news, all that's going on at the airport. I'm just so glad that we're able to take advantage and use our airport as an economic development tool and be involved in something that's really leading edge.
Turns out it pays off to have an underused airport when something like this comes along, because these folks don't want to be competing with a bunch of airplanes landing, so especially big ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody else? We also got an area of space that has been approved for these vehicles. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Dr. Estrada,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes, and I should also thank Tom Franson for his work.
Absolutely.
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a joint development agreement with Summer Enterprises LLC for an amount not to exceed $4,063.27.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Questions or comments?
I was just wondering what this involves.
Yes, this is a project out in the Springfield Industrial Park, and I'll have Tom clarify what this specific agreement does.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. So this is related to Summer Enterprises, is the real estate holdings for Del West. Del West, if you remember, is the company that purchased our last lot out at Springfield Industrial Park at the close of 2019. And then they're building a new facility out there to create engine components for a General Motors engine. The project actually was delayed in 2020 when GM slowed down production. So this project slowed down as well, but they're on track now to complete this spring and hope to open. What we're doing here with this piece of legislation is agreeing that the city is going to split the cost of an electric line extension that was unforeseen there at that site. It was about $8,000. So we agreed to split that with the company 50-50. So we're taking about $4,063 worth of that expense in support of the project. It's about $5 million investment on the company's behalf, and they hope to employ between 8 to 12 employees.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Dr. Estrop,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Copeland.
Yes. That concludes our agenda. Are there other items that come before us from commissioners? David Estrop.
Thank you, Mayor Copeland. I would just like to know how we're doing in terms of provision of city services related to COVID. I would assume things are getting better. Also, an update on the south side. I am delighted to hear that Urban Fast Forward and Mr. Dillon have plans to talk and share some expertise. That's very good news. And then just a general sense, Mark, of where we are financially.
Yes, Commissioner. So as far as the organization is concerned, we have seen a decline in number of cases. Still have cases of COVID positive employees, but those numbers are not as high as they have been, which is a good thing. So it's not impacting overall delivery of services to the public, which is always a positive thing. But again, we wish we were at 0 cases as every organization and every person would be. So we continue to battle through that. Great news again that law enforcement was opened up into the latest phase 1C. So hopefully we can get many of our law enforcement members vaccinated as quickly as possible as well. And again, I'm hopeful that that expands across the organization, and hopefully within the month's time, the state will be able to open that up even more as the availability of vaccine increases, and they're able to distribute it more widely across all sectors of the community. And specifically, as far as opening up, I do want to talk about, so March 15th, we do plan to open the first floor, which is our income tax and utility billing divisions. It is the most frequented location of probably any of the city buildings and by the public. And so we do plan to open that up March 15th, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So if you recall before, we did some short hours, morning and afternoons. On the various days, we are just going to open up Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. With the hopes that that will allow people to kind of spread out more in terms of when they actually come down. Because what we were finding when we were open for those short increments of time, everybody was coming all at once, and it really wasn't, it was negating the fact of trying to keep people separated from each other. Still, we'll have safety protocols in place. People will be required to wear masks. There will be designated X's marking their location on the floor so that they stay 6 feet apart and so forth. And hand sanitize stations will be placed around the first floor as well. We're working to hopefully open up the entire City Hall back to the public. Right now, tentatively is planning for around April 1st in that time frame, but we have not set that exact date yet because we want to continue to see the cases, the case numbers, and make sure that we're being safe in the rollout of opening up our buildings. I know Fire Station 1 and the Service Center are also working on plans to open up to the public and to their vendors that visit those locations as well. And more detail and press release would detail those openings as well. But we're getting closer, I think, where we can safely open. I do know that we do plan as of right now to return to the forum for the city commission meetings in April. And so I look forward to that. We will still have safety protocols in place when that happens. And we will also continue to allow virtual opportunities for people to participate. So we're actually having some new screens installed. I believe tomorrow is the start of the install, working with a local company that will allow us better and enhanced virtual opportunities in the forum so that, again, people can safely participate in the meetings. Which will probably include senior staff too. I will probably ask senior staff to participate virtually so that we minimize the number of people actually in the forum. So those are some of the things that we're working on, and I'm excited that we're hopefully getting to a state where we can return to some sense of normalcy. I don't think we'll ever completely return to how things were before the pandemic, but at least some sense of normalcy will be felt. As far as South Limestone redevelopment, we're continuing to work different opportunities as it relates to the Kroger property itself. And then we're also working on some recommendations that we will come to you with on the South Limestone corridor, transportation corridor, in terms of funding. We were informed that on phase 2, we did not receive the entire request that we requested through the safety program. And so we are coming up with a couple different options for how we fund the entire project. We believe that that's an important and critical project to move forward with. And so we will come forward to the commission with recommendations on how we advance that project forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I would like to comment, if I could, on the great work being done by the health district. My wife and I went out and had our second shot. Again, it went very quickly. We had no side effects or complications from the second shot. And my hats off to Commissioner Patterson and all of his staff and the many volunteers. They just done a great job out there. We were out there, my wife and I, for a total of about a half hour. And that included the 15 minutes that you're required to wait to make sure there are no side effects. So my hat's off to the health department. They're doing a great job, and my thanks to the time they put in. Mark, is there a change in the city tax deadline for income tax as there is with the federal tax while I'm thinking of it because of COVID?
At this point, we have not changed that deadline, but we will be looking at that. We published materials stating that it was April 15th, and we have not changed that date at this point in time. But certainly we'll look at it. As far as go ahead.
The feds changed it to July 15th, didn't they? Or did I read that in error?
I know they did last year. I have not seen a for sure date. I have not heard of it this year yet.
Okay. Well, I may be in error, so I don't want to mislead people.
Yeah, as of this point in time, we are still April 15th.
Okay, thank you. And how are we doing financially?
We are doing well. Our cash balances remain strong, not just in the general fund, but in our enterprise funds also. And we're, as of February, not as far ahead as we were compared year over year to last month's accounting, but we are still over 2% ahead of where we were in 2020 at the same point in time as far as income tax receipts.
Very good. Thank you.
Just adding on what Commissioner, that's guy there, David, said, I had my shot out there 2 weeks ago, and I have to say, one of the most professional run operations that I have seen. The people are very, very friendly. It moves along like Dr. Estrop said. And I think that goes a long way to state just how professional the organization is. And that just doesn't happen. I mean, I'm sure that Charles has just worked, and his staff have worked diligently to make that happen, because it just doesn't happen when you deal with all those people. And then you watch the newspapers, and he works to get people scheduled when he gets notice that he's going to have some extra. I think that was a week ago Saturday, doses delivered, and that they were, having people apply to come out for that Saturday. It's just a very professional operation. I mean, everybody is friendly, and you're moved right along, and it just works out well. I'm very happy to be part of Clark County in this deal, because I don't know how the rest of them work, but this one's really working good.
My wife and I had the same experience, but I remain concerned about whether we're reaching some segments of the community. Certainly when we were there, almost everybody who was there was white. So I think we're still having some trouble reaching all parts of the community, but I think he's working on that too. So, but very, very well run, I agree. See, us old people all have opinions. The rest of you will have to see.
My experience was at the Rocking Horse, and it was not an all-white crowd, and it was very efficient, probably more clinical than a setup at the larger space, but very efficient, very friendly. So hats off to everybody that's trying to make our community safe. But Rocking Horse did a great job as well.
Yeah, I think Rocking Horse is, given its location, is better able to serve the non-white community. So that's great. Anyone else?
Yes, for our city manager, can you talk about Channel 5? I still get questions about, are we going to be back on Channel 5?
Yes, we would love to be back on Channel 5. So one of the requirements from Spectrum was that we switch from an analog to a digital feed. And we purchased and installed all the equipment necessary to make that switch, because our equipment was too dated to be able to go to a digital feed. And Spectrum is still not giving us a date or timeline for when they will install the connection for that digital feed. So Gary Peters in our IT department has worked relentlessly trying to get movement on this. I've reached out to their government affairs rep and cannot get any response. They keep saying it's stuck in their legal for review. I'm not sure what they're reviewing. Again, it was their request for the upgrades, or requirement, I guess, for the upgrade to a digital feed. I'm kind of at a loss. I'm frankly very frustrated by the lack of effort and response from Spectrum on getting us set back up for Channel 5. So I apologize to the citizens, because I know a lot of people do actually utilize and watch Channel 5. And we want that to be a platform to get information out to the public. And we are at the whim of Spectrum on this.
I'm just wondering if you could put a letter together that would have our names and our concerns, because the community's not getting the communication that they deserve.
Yep.
If you could just put that together, and if the mayor would be okay with that.
Absolutely. I personally found that we had trouble even with how they treated us in our home in terms of times and things like that. So we ended up seeing 3 different people over a month period. And when I watch the stuff on TV, they claim they're really fantastic at service, but I haven't seen it so far. So I really think we need to put something
maybe
together.
a little public awareness and a little concern publicly would help.
I think we'll invite them to the first meeting that we have in the forum to give a presentation as to how that Channel 5, and also the service in the community, because I get the same thing off the TV also. that they're, now they do keep their appointments on time pretty much, but it's just a matter of what they accomplish and whatnot. But I think we owe them the opportunity to come to the forum and give us a presentation. We used to do that, by the way, but haven't been there for a while. So I think that would be a good idea.
And taking everything into account about COVID and staffing and things
Sure.
like that, you have to measure that in there. But I agree with Kevin, that's some form of accountability, because there's a lot of the community, like Joyce said, it's not getting the information that they need.
I agree. In fact, I would suggest that we perhaps pass a formal resolution inviting them to come and present and include that in a letter. And I'm also wondering if our attorney, Jill Allen, since they're saying the problem is tied up in legal, if she could contact their legal department on our behalf and see what the problem is. I would think all of that would be appropriate.
Well, I know for a period of time, they stopped servicing anyone downtown. They closed that facility in not only people coming in and paying their bills, but returning their equipment and all of that. And you had to go out to Bechtel Avenue and send it in yourself. So again, they've made changes for the better or the worse. I'm sure that I heard they have opened the door again though, back down there on the corner.
Yeah, and unfortunately, our relationship, we can't just go over down on Main Street or to the local stores. This is at the corporate level. And so I'm frustrated by it.
Well, again, and we shouldn't have to do that. Don't we still get a franchise fee from them at some point in time each year or quarterly or something?
We
Mark?
still get a piece. I don't know if it's technically called the franchise fee anymore. Mark can speak more to that.
We do receive I still call it franchise fee. I don't know whether that's the correct terminology at this point, but we do receive one from them, yes.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm all for Commissioner Rue's suggestion, and maybe you can get them here after we open back up in April for a work session or something. That would be fantastic.
Yep, I can work on this.
We all seem to agree, and many of us have had some issues with them in other areas. So I think it represents the people of Springfield for us to give them a chance to tell us how they're going to provide service to our community. Okay, anything else? Anybody want to adjourn?
So moved, Esther.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Chilton,
Yes.
Mr. Rue,
Yes.
Dr. Estra,
Yes?
Mr. Copeland.